In this video, we will show you how to replace your headlamp switch on this Dodge Dakota. This will be located on the driver's side of the dash. Let's get into it. Alright, let's get started on our job. We're going to have to gain access behind the headlamp switch. With that said, we're going to have to remove some trim panels. Let's start by removing this side panel. We'll use a plastic trim tool to start removing this. What you'll find is as you start pulling it out, you're also going to need to have a small flathead screwdriver. Make my way underneath this panel here and gently start prying it away. As I'm prying, I'm looking for the locking tabs that are located behind it. There's going to be several of them. Use the small screwdriver to press on each of the locking tab. You can continue pulling this out and move along to the next locking tab. Take hold of that, we can give it a little twist and remove it from the dash. Now that I have it off of there, you have a nice clear view of the tabs. Where my pocket screwdriver is where the locking tab is that I had pressed in on to draw this away. With that out of the way, we're going to continue by removing 4 7mm headed bolts. You'll find 2 for the lower panel and 2 more for the upper panel. You don't need to remove the up top bolt here. Now let's make our way underneath the lower plastic panel and you'll find 2 more 7mm headed bolts. Remove the pair. Carefully take hold of the panel, give it a little tug straight rearward. Now that we have this pulled away, you're going to find that you have a rod that's attached to your parking brake handle. We'll use an angled pick to carefully push this tab out of the way. Go ahead and pry that off of the rod, and then pry the rod out of the handle. Remove the trim panel. Now we can move along to paying attention to this area. You'll find that you have a locking tab, so we're going to continue with the plastic trim tool and gently pry the trim away from that locking tab. Once you have this dislodged, we're going to have to be extremely careful for any pinch points. Carefully put your hand behind the trim panel and gently start pulling on it a little bit. You'll notice that it starts pulling away from the dash. While I'm pulling away from this area, I'll also reach in by where the gauge cluster is and grab on. Now with 2 hands on this, I'm going to be pulling this straight back towards me away from the dash. Now I'll reach up along the top, grab onto that, as well as the other side of the steering column, and tug on that as well. With that pulled away, you have a clear view of the back side of the headlamp switch. Let's make our way to disconnecting the wiring. Where my thumb is, there's a squeeze tab. Squeeze that in, pull off the wiring harness. Every time you disconnect an electrical connector, take a peek. If you see any funny colors, that's corrosion and it would need to be dealt with. Ours looks fine. Now we can start removing our 3 Phillips head mounting screws. You'll find 2 along the driver's side of the switch and 1 over towards the passenger side. Let's remove all 3. Now we can remove the headlamp switch through the back side. There it is, friends. Alright, let's install our brand new headlamp switch. We'll put this in position along the back side of the dash trim panel. Once you have that properly aligned, you can hold onto the headlamp switch. While holding it in place, start in all 3 of your mounting screws before snugging them up. You can start with whichever bolt you like. Once they're all started, snug them up. Continue on to your wiring harness. We'll press this in, listen for a click, give it a tug to make sure it's completely secured to the switch. Now let's start aligning our trim panel up along the top here. You want to make sure each of the tabs goes underneath the forward aspect of the dash while you continue pressing it into position. Now we'll continue pressing this in, paying attention to this area. Now we can start putting up the lower panel. You want to pay attention to the parking brake rod. Bring the panel up into place and attach the rod. I'll take hold of the rod with some needle nose pliers so I can get into this area. We'll put the rod directly into its locking clip. Once you have it in the proper position, continue on with your angled pick and swing that white locking tab up and over the rod. Once you feel as though that's locked in, just go ahead and try to press it off of there with your pick. We want to make sure that it's secure before you continue. Now let's pay attention along the bottom area of the dash. You'll find that you have a slot on the driver's side of the steering column and the same on the passenger side. And on the trim panel that we had just started to put on, you'll find that you have two locking tabs. Bring this up into position, aligning both of those tabs with their corresponding holes. Once they are, press them straight up against the dash to lock them in position. Go ahead and give that a little pull to make sure it's secured. Continue on to your 4 7mm headed mounting bolts. Now we can move along to our side trim panel. As we slide this into position, you're going to be paying attention for each of your locking tabs and their corresponding holes. Let's bring this in behind here. Now we can align all of the tabs with their corresponding areas and slide this into position. Now let's make our way underneath the panel for our final 2 7mm headed mounting bolts. Okay friends, we showed you how to install your headlamp switch assembly. At this point, put the key in the on position and test its functionality. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.